I have terrible insomnia and cannot sleep without a sleeping pill. Even with the sleeping pill, I awake every hour or so, and I cannot figure out what is waking me. I decided to download a sleeping app to see if my snoring was waking me up, or sleep apnea. At first it was normal sounds, my breathing quietly, and then being jolted awake every hour or so. I thought it was odd that I awoke every hour on the dot, each time making an audible gasp as I awoke from my dream. Not being able to find any reason for waking up every hour, I continued to listen to my sleep patterns each morning. The first morning I heard it, I almost missed the sound. I was getting ready for class when I heard something very quiet right before I awoke, gasping. It sounded like a very quiet whisper, just a moment before I was jolted awake. I couldn't make out what it was saying, and I assumed it was street noise that somehow got recorded. This kept happening every night for a week. It was still so faint I couldn't make it out. Each time the whispering would begin, moments before a spike in my movement. I decided to investigate by moving the phone closer to my bedside than to my face. What I recorded is unexplainable and has me frightened for my safety and sanity. It started off again like quiet whispering. Then you can hear something crawling on the hardwood floor quickly towards my phone and my bed. You audibly hear me take in a deep breath of shock and then fall back to sleep moments later. For another hour there is nothing on the tape, and then I heard it. This time it was close to my phone. It spoke quickly and in a guttural tone. At first I couldn't make out what it was saying, because it repeated it so quickly. Right when I began to make out real words, I again gasp in my sleep, and then the thing in my room goes quiet. This time it doesn't stay quiet for long before I hear this shifting movement. It sounds like someone's swaying side to side, maybe on their knees. Then, very loudly, I heard a man, this time in a deep voice, whisper my name very close to my bed and the phone. It repeated my name after that for an entire hour, but very quietly. At this point, I'm getting terrified of this stupid fucking sleeping app that is only going to forever ruin my chances of actually sleeping through the night. I was just about to turn it off and call the police when there is a massive audio spike. It sounds like a creature screaming, first in a slow tone, and then it grows in volume and sound to something inhuman. Seconds later, you can hear me from my bed, harmonizing with the scream next to me. I have never heard anything like it in my life. I didn't even know I could make noises like that. I packed up my bag and headed back to the apartment in the dark. I was terrified of what I had just heard, but needed to investigate. As I approached my apartment, the window was illuminated in my living room. Standing there in my window is something tall and thin and inhuman. It's got one hand placed on the glass. It's facing me as I stand on the sidewalk. I turned around and ran back to campus, and have been in the library since, slamming back espresso. I can't return home, but I am also terrified that this thing will follow me regardless of where I go. As long as I stay awake, it can't harm me, right? Someone is sending me weird text messages. The first one came a few days ago. It was Thursday night, and I was up to my elbows in a cardboard box full of kitchen utensils and baking pans when I heard my phone ping from across the room. I ignored it and went back to rummaging through the box. I had moved into my new apartment a few days earlier and was still living out of boxes. The necessities had been unpacked and set up. My bed, the TV, my kitchen table, toiletries had been stuffed under the bathroom sink. A dozen black garbage bags full of clothes had been stuffed into my bedroom closet. The rest was hidden in a daunting heap of cardboard boxes that I hadn't bothered to label when I packed them. I only rummaged through the pile when absolutely necessary. Like the night before, when I realized I hadn't brushed my teeth in 3 days and spent a half hour looking to find my toothbrush. An hour later, I had abandoned the box of kitchen crap and curled up on the couch to watch TV. I was wearing an oversized orange hoodie that I could pull over my knees like a blanket. It was the wee morning hours, and the only shows that were playing were infomercials for blenders and crappy old episodes of CSI. I had just flipped to a televangelist preaching when I heard my phone ping again. It was still next to the stove where I had left it charging. This time I got up and dragged myself across the kitchen. I was teetering on the edge of drunkenness from the $5 bottle of bitter Pinot Grigio I had helped myself to for dinner, pretending it would help me unpack. It just made me feel all warm and floppy and silly, and even less motivated than before. I picked up my phone and looked at the texts. The first thing I noticed was that both texts were from the same person. The second thing I noticed was that instead of a contact name or phone number, this person was identified simply with a purple devil horn emoji. Now, there's something you should know about me. I'm not that sort of person that uses emojis. I'm definitely not the sort of person that would save someone as a contact in my phone using an emoji instead of their name. That's when I noticed the third thing about these texts. They were picture messages. I have that setting on my iPhone where message content is kept private on my lock screen. So instead of seeing the text or picture, my phone will just say text message or picture message. Sober me might have seen red flags pop up at this point, but drunk me was excited. It seemed flirtatious and naughty. I quickly tapped in my passcode and clicked straight into the messages to see what picture this purple grinning devil had sent me. 2 black rectangles. Pictures were of nothing. I tapped one to make sure I wasn't missing anything. Pinched the screen to zoom in, then out again. Nothing. I opened the second one. Same thing, just black. Sober me wouldn't have responded, but drunk me wanted to flirt back. I thought for a second about what to say, then typed, "I think you forgot to turn the flash on." Despite my drunkenness, I immediately knew that was a stupid thing to say. Who was I talking to? Was I assuming he was sending me a dick pic or something? I hadn't even given my number out to anyone recently, and even if I had, that wouldn't explain why they were showing up as the purple devil horns emoji. I grabbed a water bottle out of the fridge and walked to my bedroom, staring at my phone as I went, waiting. I threw myself onto the bed, kicked off my jeans, then I opened Safari and typed, "Can someone have an emoji instead of a phone number?" into the search bar. I must have nodded off before I managed to read the answer, because I woke up the next morning with my face pressed against my phone, glued on with a sticky layer of drool. Retracing the events of the night before, I clicked open my messages to see if Purple Devil had ever written back. He or she had, but it was just another black rectangle. No message. Try again, I typed and hit send. I fought back my wine hangover with a handful of aspirin and the bottle of water I had left untouched next to the bed. Then I went to work. I didn't hear back from the Purple Devil until that night. I'd almost forgotten about the whole ordeal entirely. I was in the shower washing my hair when I heard my phone ping from the pile of crumpled up clothes I had stripped off and left on the bathroom floor. There was still soap in my hair, but I was so curious to see if it was my purple mystery admirer that I cranked off the water and leapt out of the shower. I was making a huge puddle on the tile floor, but I didn't care. I dug through my heap of clothes, pulling my phone from my pants pocket. Sure enough, it was the Purple Devil, and he had sent another black rectangle. In a sober frame of mind, I started to feel freaked out. Was this some sort of prank? It had to be someone I knew, right? I finished rinsing my hair. Then I went back to the kitchen. I wanted to make myself a cup of tea, but after searching in vain, I gave up and settled on wine again. I knew it was a bad idea, but I had to calm my nerves somehow. I planned on stopping halfway through the bottle. I didn't realize I finished the whole thing until I tilted the bottle back to take a sip, and a tiny drop fell onto my tongue. I opened my messages again and pulled up the Purple Devil. He hadn't sent any more of his black rectangles, but I wanted to get to the bottom of it. I was also feeling relaxed and drunk, and the idea of a secret admirer had become more appealing and less alarming. "Who are you?" I typed out, and I hesitated and hit backspace until it cleared the message. I tried again. "Do I know you?" That's better, I thought. More flirty, less accusatory. I hit send. I waited and waited. I watched an entire rerun episode of CSI Miami. Still, no response. Drunk curiosity turned into drunk frustration. Hello?" I typed and hit send before I could reconsider. "Then what? Am I not interesting enough for you?" No response. "Well, fine," I said out loud to nobody and stomped to bed. I'd almost drifted off to sleep when I heard my phone ping from under my pillow. It was from the Purple Devil. No message, just another black rectangle. "So you're just not going to say anything? Who are you?" I typed. I waited for a response until I drifted off to sleep. I woke up the next morning and immediately reached for my phone. One new text from Purple Devil. One more black rectangle, bringing the total to 6. At this point, I wasn't sure what I felt. I was 20% curious, 20% annoyed, 20% freaked out, and 40% hungover. It was Saturday, so I didn't have to work, but my pounding headache wouldn't let me sleep in. I dragged myself out of bed and went to the pile of boxes that needed unpacking. By noon, I had managed to reduce the pile to a few lingering boxes. I thought about hitting the mess of clothes bags in the closet. I had dumped them there on move-in day, closed the closet doors, and hadn't looked at them since. But I decided I had done enough for one day. I rewarded myself by driving to the grocery store and picking up another bottle of wine and some Spam to fry up for dinner. I watched CSI and ate my Spam, and then I sprawled out on the couch. I hadn't opened the wine yet, and I thought maybe I didn't need to. Maybe I could take the night off. I watched a few more episodes and still hadn't opened the wine. I was tempted though, so I decided to go lay down in bed. The further I was from the wine, the stronger my resistance. The digital clock on my nightstand said it was 11:30 p.m. I hadn't gone to bed that early in months. I let my head hit the pillow and closed my eyes, willing myself to fall asleep. I couldn't remember the last time I had tried to go to sleep sober. I might have drifted off, but then I heard my phone ping. I didn't want to look, but I was too anxious not to look. I braced myself, expecting to see the purple devil, but my heart strained in my chest. I could feel my blood pulse through my temples. But it wasn't him. Verizon message. You've used about 75% of your 2 GB data plan. Of course I have, I sighed, and rolled my eyes at myself. I had gotten cable and internet installed the day I moved in, but I had never switched my phone over to Wi-Fi. I opened up my settings and searched for my router name. It prompted me for the password. I couldn't remember the password, but I had taken a picture of it on the back of my modem. I scrolled through my camera roll and found the picture. It was too dark. I couldn't make out the letters and numbers. I pinched the picture to zoom in, trying to make out the password, but the picture was just too dark. Out of habit, I went to the photo settings and started to lighten the photo with the exposure and brightness tools. Then, the realization struck me like a wave of cold water. I was lightening the picture to reveal something I couldn't see. What if I did the same thing with the purple devil's picture? I felt a chill go down my spine, even though I had no reason to feel afraid yet. I clicked into my messages and pulled up my conversation with the purple devil. 6 black rectangles were waiting for me, and my fingers shook as I saved the first one he had sent. I opened my camera roll and opened the first picture, then went to the settings. I held my finger on the exposure slider and slowly moved it. The picture brightened as I did. It was like watching a photo develop. The image slowly appeared, forming before my eyes as the brightness melted the black away and revealed shapes. My bed, I realized. It was a picture of my bed. The same bed I was laying in. I couldn't control my shaking anymore. My body had gone numb, my limbs cold. I frantically went back to the conversations and saved the rest of the pictures, then clicked back to my camera roll. I brightened the second picture. It took me a second to realize what I was looking at. It was me, sitting on my couch, drinking wine from the bottle. I felt nauseous as I recognized the orange hoodie I was wearing, and realized that the photo had been taken the first night. He had taken it from behind the stack of boxes while I was watching TV. Right before he sent it, he had been in my home. He had been watching me while I was sitting right there in front of him. I knew I should call for help. The police, my landlord, anyone. I should get out of my apartment, but I couldn't. I needed to see the rest first. I opened the third picture and started brightening it. Any blood that was left on my face drained when I saw the shape of my face form out of the darkness. It was me, in bed, passed out in my orange hoodie, the bottle of water next to me. Oh God, there were black lines across the photo, and when my eyes glanced up to trace the angle it had been taken from, I realized It was the closet. The lines in the photos were the slits in the closet door. He had been watching me from inside. I grabbed my blankets and ducked under them, even though I knew that wouldn't help anything. I should run. I should leave. But I was glued to the spot. I opened the next picture, but before I could brighten it in my phone, ping. No, it was the purple devil. It was another black rectangle. I opened it. My fingers shakily hit save. My phone nearly fell out of my hands. My palms were so sweaty. I swallowed, tried to drag the slider to adjust the brightness. My finger slipped, and instead of gradually brightening, it went all the way to the end of the slider and instantly illuminated the frame. My eyes adjusted, focusing in. It was my bed, taken from the same angle as before. I could see a lump hiding under the covers. I knew it was me. This photo was different from the other one, though. There weren't any lines. He wasn't in the closet anymore. I didn't wait any longer. I didn't think. I threw my body forward. My feet hit the floor in front of the bed, and I whipped the blanket from me, throwing it towards where I knew he must be standing, waiting. I ran, because I was sober, because I had never been more terrified of anything in my life, because the fear gave me strength and speed I didn't know I had. I felt him behind me, closing in as I reached the front door of my apartment. Everything happened in slow motion. My hand fumbled with the lock. My other hand grasped the door handle. I heard footsteps behind me, felt fingers wrap through my hair and graze my skull just as I pulled the door open. I never looked back. I ran, screaming, down the hallway, down the stairs, all the way to where my car was parked. I locked myself in and hit the gas, the tires screeching angrily over the pavement. I didn't dare look in the rearview mirror, even after I had made it to the highway. I didn't catch my breath until I was pulling into my sister's driveway. It was the only place I could think to go. All the lights were off, but I ran up to the front porch and rang the doorbell 3 times. I could tell I had woken her. She came to the door in her cat pajamas, rubbing sleep from her squinty eyes. She was mad at first, but I think she was surprised, relieved to see me sober. She told me I could sleep in the guest bed, and we'd talk about it in the morning. I fell onto the guest bed, trying to make sense of what happened. Then it happened again. Ping. It was from him. A black rectangle. I had a weird dream the other night. Like, not a scary dream, but weird. I've never really had that many dreams, apart from stupid stuff when I was young. Aside from loads of random obscure dreams, there's never any links between dreams, aside from the sexual, which is weird, so I don't mention that. So I generally describe myself as a pretty boring dreamer. This dream was a little different, though. It started with me in a courtroom. I was attending a trial, of which my dream didn't give me any information. All I got was a courtroom and lots of people dressed formally. At some point, the judge said we'd be taking a break from the trial. The room had 2 large glass doors leading to a patio that was in clear view from all positions of the courtroom, and I head outside for a smoke, followed by a member of the jury. Whilst outside, a tall, bearded man dressed in a black suit and tie was already out there. The other man that came out with me stood in between me and the bearded man. and we made small talk. The bearded man was whistling a tune that didn't seem to make sense to me. I'm a musician, so I tend to pick up on tunes and melodies in everyday things, like whistling. But this tune didn't seem to make sense to me. It didn't appear to be following any specific key, often sounding discordant and generally random and unpleasant. Despite the randomness of the whistling, the man was repeating the short, musical phrase over and over again, perfectly every time. I was making a conscious effort to listen to it and try to recreate it in my head, but despite the fact I could hear it being performed right next to me, my brain wouldn't pick it up. Like it was just impossible for my brain to comprehend it. I finished my smoke and went inside with the man who came out with me, and the trial continued. A few minutes later, a woman gasped loudly and pointed over at the glass doors. The bearded man was still outside, and his body was contorting and writhing in a really disturbing manner. He turned to face the courtroom, his eyes fully rolled back into his head, the whites badly bloodshot. Suddenly, he coughed a large spurt of blood out his mouth, and his neck started throbbing violently, all whilst his body was still violently shaking. A large worm-like creature suddenly burst through his neck, and as it came through more, it completely severed his head. There was now a meter-long parasite waving around the stump where his head used to be, still attached to his body internally. Panic flooded the courtroom, and the room was locked down by 2 security guards. Unfortunately, this was the only exit to the room, and despite the efforts of the security trying to keep everyone calm, most people weren't taking it very well. Lots of people were on the phone to their relatives, trying to explain what had just happened. Some were crying hysterically. Then there was the man who came outside for a smoke with me. He was sat in an isolated corner in the fetal position, gently rocking and whistling. He was whistling exactly the same tune that the man who had just turned into a fucked up parasite thing was whistling. Once again, I tried to figure it out in my head and still couldn't. It just wasn't happening for me. I assumed it was a comfort thing. He was whistling to try and calm himself, and I was just having a brain fart and not being able to remember the tune properly. I began helping the security try and calm people, because in my dreams, I'm a hero, obviously. When suddenly the whistling man in the corner bolted upright and screamed. Well, he tried to scream, but it just came out as a gargling sound, and just as quickly as he stood up, his head burst off his neck, quickly followed by the same parasite creature. One of the security pulled his pistol out and shot at the head of the creature, causing it to emit a horrendous screech and disgusting brown liquid, before flopping down against the now very deceased gentleman's torso, before the whole body also fell. At this point, I noticed that more people had started whistling the tune, and as more people started, it carried on, spreading to more and more people like a plague. Despite the fact that I could hear the tune being whistled by 15 to 20 people, I still couldn't recreate it. As you will have done at this point in my dream, I realized that somehow this is how the creature was spreading. I looked over at the man outside, who was still stood in exactly the same position with the creature still attached to him, flailing wildly, but not making any moves towards the door. Gradually, everyone in the room started turning into these creatures, but just before the last few did, I woke up. Slightly annoyed at the awful ending of my dream, I went about my normal morning routine. I had planned to take my girlfriend to a spa day at a big country manor not too far away from my house. So I picked her up and headed there for our day of relaxation. I told her about the dream, and like me, she was disappointed with the end. I pulled up in the car park of the manor and started walking up the steps towards the entrance. I passed a bearded man who shared a striking similarity with the man from my dream, but just shook it off. A lot of hipsters have that kind of big, bushy, black beard like him. And besides, it was disguising his face fairly well, and I didn't get a proper look at him. It was at that point I noticed the tune in my head, a discordant mess, following no key or structure, but perfectly repeating itself constantly. I always imagined I would die of old age. I never thought there would be so much blood. If the damn music would stop playing, if they would just shut up, I could at least go in peace. Where is he? I earned my PhD at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, with an additional 4 years residency at the Baltimore Bethesda Fellowship. Next came 5 years at the Union Memorial Psychiatric Hospital, before I opened a private practice, which I've now run for the past 12 years. If I make it out of this alive, I'm going to find a new line of work. In all my years as a psychiatrist, I have never encountered a case like this. His symptoms were innocent enough. Just a ringing in his ears which wouldn't go away. He'd visited numerous otolaryngologists, but as there was no discernible cause for the ringing, he was referred to me to decipher the source of the psychosomatic phenomenon. He never made eye contact with me, nor did he ever speak above a whisper. He just stared at his hands during the session, endlessly wringing them against each other. He'd been doing this so obsessively, in fact, that his fingers were rubbed raw and bleeding. I made considerable progress on the first day, and with the aid of some anti-anxiety medication, he was able to look me in the eye, although the hand-wringing continued. I wish now that I hadn't prescribed anything, that I'd kept those black, lifeless eyes pointed away from my face, because as soon as my eyes met his, I began to hear it too. That soft ringing, like church bells inside my skull. And that smile, that twisted grimace of satisfaction. I prescribed some antipsychotics, and even took some for myself. By the time I got home, the ringing was gone. In our third session, the ringing started again as soon as he entered the room. The pitch wasn't consistent like it was before, though. It rose and fell in a melodic rhythm like a whole orchestra was welling up inside me. And he just stared and grinned. I don't think he even cared about getting better. He was just relieved at not being the only one to hear it. I increased the dosage, and the phantom sounds went away, and they'd stay away for as long as I was alone. But the moment he was in the room with me, the sound would swell up with my racing heart beating in rhythm to the music. I'd started wringing my hands too, just something to distract myself from the noise. By the end of the fourth session, my hands were covered in blood. I hadn't even noticed how hard I was clenching them together. As you might imagine, I referred him to another doctor. I got a few angry phone calls and threats after that. My secretary said they were always hissed in that customary whisper he had. I didn't care. I wasn't taking him back. The sound has left with him, but I can't seem to shake the habit of rubbing my hands against one another. It's gotten so bad that I decided to take a few days off work just to take my mind off things. So why do I hear that damn sound again as soon as I enter my house? It's louder than ever, and now there's a choir singing too. I lock the door behind me, but my hands slip. It's wet with blood. How is there so much blood coming from my hands? I don't remember it getting this bad. And the music isn't stopping. He's in my house, in my room. I can almost feel those black eyes smiling at me. Fine, let him at me. I'm a doctor, for God's sake. I can handle the blood. Just let the music stop. I found someone's journal in my garden today. It was shoved into the hedge, which is insane considering how many thorns these bushes have. The people who rented this place before me planted them, and now I'm glad I didn't get permission to destroy them, because I am seriously creeped out. There's no number or address or even dates in it, even though it's one of those plush, leather-bound ones you see in a bookstore every December. The ones going for more money than any sane person would spend on a book they can only use for a year. Just a name on the front page, and a whole bunch of numbered entries, and little streaks of blood on the cover, like whoever shoved it there got shredded by thorns. The owner's name I hope not was, Fiona. Entry 1. Holy shit, this is a nice book. I should not have written that first off. Oh well, start as you intend to carry on, as they say, and I intend to carry on cursing like a sailor, because I finally got a job. I got a job that pays, and I can finally get out of this fucking house and away from Dad. He thinks I don't know he stole this book, like he'd ever pay for something this nice. I don't even remember applying for any government work. It must have been during that crazy first applying for anything that I might remotely be qualified for thing. And seriously, the pay is fantastic. All hail the government and their incestuous wage negotiations. Entry 2. I have to take a full physical before I can start work. Shit. I guess I really have to quit smoking now. I can't afford to lose this before I even start. I fucking hate quitting. I'd buy the gum, but Dad spent the last of my unemployment on booze again. At least they're doing it on site, so I don't have to pay for it. To do before Monday. Call the bank. Yell until they actually cancel the fucking card like they swore they would. Take Buttons the J to cat sit. Gonna have to give her something of Mum's to do it this time. Can't afford to actually pay her. Shit. Steal my car's keys off Dad's keyring. I paid for it. It's a crappy old piece of junk, but it's mine. Hide my documents under the loose seat. He never looks for shit there. Visit Mum's grave. Get the fuck out of this house and never come back. Entry 3. Had the physical today. A lady doctor, which is something, but it took forever. Gonna be working in this huge gray building. Gray inside, gray outside. Probably miserable as fuck. Although, the people I saw running around doing stuff didn't seem too sad. No weird lumps or crazy blood or anything, so I reckon I passed. Got the cravings, something awful, but coffee helps. Every time I want a cigarette, I remind myself how bad I need this job. I managed to rent a cabin at the caravan park last minute, so that's something. Thankfully, I managed to talk the manager into waiting till I get my unemployment pay next week. Barely gonna have enough to live on till the real money comes in, but it's something. Just had a thought. Do physicals usually involve MRIs? Entry 4. Data entry. They put me through all that shit to do data entry? Fuck my life. Entry 5. There was a dog at work today. It came into my workroom just after lunch and started sniffing around like crazy. The other 3 people there, I don't even know their names. I swear they never say a damn word that isn't about the endless readings we're plugging into the system. Glanced at it and put their heads down even more than usual. Screw that noise. I'm never ignoring a dog. Especially when the dog comes up almost to my shoulder. Fuck me, it was a big dog. Also the biggest sook ever. 2 minutes of petting and baby talk and the big fuzzy bugger looked like he was gonna die of happy. I swear I typed twice as fast for the rest of the day. Puppies are fucking awesome. Entry 6. Dad found out where I was staying. The manager called the cops because he was screaming like a goddamn banshee and banging on the door so hard I thought it was gonna come down. They arrested him, and one of the cops gave me his number in case I ever need to get rid of Dad again. I need a place yesterday. Why won't the old bastard just die? Why did it have to be Mum who got hit by the fucking telephone pole? I hate everything. Entry 7. Saw the dog at work today. It was walking next to this tall, skinny guy in an impeccable suit. He'd almost be unremarkable next to the dog if he didn't have this, I don't know, something about him said, "Look at me and remember me, because I have the power to fuck you all up," or whatever. Kinda cute though. Wonder what he was doing there. He looked even younger than me. And those assholes I work with sure don't let me forget that I'm practically right out of school. Looking at a few apartments tomorrow. Dad's not out yet, but I know the bastard will come right back when he is. Entry 8. Finally a good day. Got the news right before work this morning. I got a place. It's a tiny little studio apartment, barely more than a bedsit, but it's cheap and clean, and Dad doesn't know where it is. Best part is, I can move in straight away. Gonna be sleeping on a shitty old camp bed for a while, but who cares? Saw the dog again too. No pretty boy Boo, but it's obviously remembered me. Dogs make everything better, especially giant ones. Entry 9. I met Pretty Boy. He's my boss. Shit. Well, technically, he's my boss's boss's boss, but still. I swear, I didn't know he was my boss when I was checking him out. He's cute. I'm human. It distracts me from desperately wanting a smoke. He was confused that his dog likes me. I might have babbled a bit about loving dogs and missing having them around since Mum died. I probably sounded like an idiot. Please don't let him remember me. Entry 10. Dad's out. I wanted to get a restraining order, but I'd have to give my address and I might not get it. Fuck that noise. There's a gym at work. Someone finally thought to tell me today. I spent an hour just losing my shit all over a punching bag. I'm tired and sore, and it feels fantastic. I'm gonna do it again. Entry 11. The dog came and found me at the gym. His name is Cookie. That is the best thing ever, and anyone who says it isn't is wronger than the fact Donald Trump isn't in jail for what he did to those women. No, I'm not letting that go. People who admit to rape on tape need to be fucking killed so they can't do it again. But enough about why the world is officially going to hell. The boss came looking for his dog and was surprised that he was with me again. Well, no shit. Dogs like people who give them hugs. Turns out the dog is his bodyguard, because he doesn't trust people. His name is Daniel, and his bodyguard is called Cookie. I'm never getting over this. Entry 12. Daniel keeps turning up when I'm on break, or done working for the day. I think he's trying to flirt with me. I won't pretend I'm not interested, but can I even afford to have someone in my life when Dad's out there being his drunken asshole self? Entry 13. I tried searching for some of the meaning of the data I've been working with lately. I couldn't find anything. Am I really working for the government? And do I even care? I'm finally starting to enjoy life. Entry 14. Daniel is definitely flirting with me, in a weird, awkward, I will praise your work ethic way too much kind of way. I kind of want to flirt back, but I don't want to be seen as that new person fucking the boss. Plus, the cops called and said Dad's been skipping his court-mandated AA meetings and anger management. Just die already, Dad. Nobody wants you anymore. Entry 15. I've decided I don't care who I'm working for. And I don't care if Dad's being Dad. I'm not going to be scared anymore. I'm never going to let anyone scare me again. Next time I see Daniel, I'm going to kiss him. And anyone who tries to stop me can fuck 1,000,000 miles off. Entry 16. It's been crazy this last month. So crazy I've barely had time to sleep, let alone writing this. Dad died. Jay smelled something weird coming from his place and called the cops. He was so fucked up he drank half a bottle of drain cleaner that we must have bought before Mom died. The cops said it wasn't pretty. I didn't feel much of anything then. I don't know. I think I'm just relieved he's gone. Daniel and I are a thing. A very awkward thing that we keep quiet most of the time, but still a thing. He's shit at romance, but the sex is amazing. And it's nice to have someone who doesn't want to let me go because they care, instead of needing money or to copy my homework or a quick grope behind the gym or something. Wow, my life has been full of chronic fuck-ups and assholes, hasn't it? It seems like Daniel's the first person to give a shit about me since Mom died. I'm still not sure what I'm typing in at work. Doesn't even seem to matter anymore. I'm happy. Oh, and my cousin is getting married, and apparently Dad being dead means I'm invited to things again. So I might finally get to go back to having an actual family. That would be nice. Entry 17. I requested the day before my cousin's wedding off, so I could drive down and not be all rushed on the day. Less than an hour later, Daniel was there, wanting to know who I'd be with and why. I know I told him about the wedding, and I know he doesn't seem too good at normal person stuff sometimes. IQ of 209, I found out. No wonder I can't keep up when he gets going some days. But surely, this isn't too hard to understand. They're family. Family who aren't assholes. Entry 18. Just back from the wedding. Apparently there was some kind of crisis at work because Daniel was beside himself and ranting so hard I barely understood it. I've never been hugged so hard in my life. He joked that he's never going to let me go away for so long again. I guess I need to figure out a way to tell him that's kind of creepy when things settle down again. Entry 19. For some reason, I found myself really craving a cigarette today. It hasn't been this bad since I first quit. I spent what felt like half the day beating the shit out of a punching bag and trying not to snarl at anyone who got too close. Daniel thinks swearing is beneath me. I really need to watch that. I wound up telling Daniel about the aunt, Auntie S, who got me hooked years ago. She was always a mess. She was so much younger than the rest of Mom's siblings, and they let her get away with murder. She's in prison now. I found out at the wedding. She was selling drugs to high school kids when they caught her. I always thought Mom's side of the family was so much better than Dad's. Maybe I was wrong. Entry 20. Auntie S got stabbed in prison yesterday. They don't think she's going to make it. I don't know what to feel. It's like I'm wrapped in cotton wool. The only thing that's real is Daniel's arms around me. Unnumbered entry. Where did the drain cleaner come from? Entry 21. I'm an idiot. So caught up in my freedom to choose, I didn't even notice. I've escaped one nightmare and thrown myself into another one. Daniel, I know you're reading this. I know you're the reason people from work are nearby no matter where I go and what I do. I know what you did. Dad deserved it. Auntie S probably did too. But that doesn't mean you can go around killing people who you don't like. I never wanted you to kill anyone for me. Entry 22. I'm leaving you. That's the last entry in the journal. The page is stained and crumpled. I think she was crying when she wrote it. I don't know what to do with this journal. I tried to take it out to the police, and they told me it was just someone's writing project and I should go home and stop wasting their time. They seem scared of someone, and I'm scared too. There's a young man with a massive dog searching my street.